Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Power of Educating Our Own. This is the program hosted by the Clara Mohammed School Network. We bring it to you every Sunday at this time. So welcome. We are so very excited about tonight's program. And I have with me tonight as my co-host,
Patricia Salahuddin, welcome everyone. It is so wonderful to be back with you tonight.
Alhamdulillah. And every week we do our best to bring you relevant programming, relevant to us as a community and as great educators in our community. Tonight is no different. Tonight's program is going to center on wellness and our children because our true independence comes when our children are doing well. And we're going to look at some strategies and look at some ways to improve, to assess, and to determine best ways forward to ensure wellness of our children. And it is our honor and our pleasure to bring to tonight's program Brother Bilal Walker, who has a wonderful program that he has in the New Jersey area centered on the wellness of children. For those of you who are tuned in, we invite you to be a part of tonight's program. And the way that you can be a part of tonight's program is simply dropping us a message in the chat. Let us know where you are listening from. Drop it in there, share your name, where you're listening from. And as we are going on with the program, you can even share questions you may have for Brother Bilal. Brother Bilal, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. It's great to be here. Thank
Walaikum
you so much for
salam.
hosting me. How are you all doing today?
Alhamdulillah. So happy to have you. So I'm very excited about tonight's program. And I'd love to begin simply by helping our audience to get to know who you are and what are you doing here? Why are you here with us tonight?
So thank you all for having me. My name is Bilal Walker. I'm a community advocate and educator here from the city of Newark, New Jersey. I'm here to talk to you all about the importance of building relationships with your family and connecting outdoors. So it's really refreshing to join you all today. I'm sure everyone's traveling from all over the country for the time to be grateful. So wishing everyone, praying for everyone safe travels, inshallah, as they return home.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Wonderful. So happy to have you here to talk about this idea of wellness. So, Dr. Patricia, feel free to jump in. I don't want to take over the whole conversation, but I do want to understand, Brother Bilal. I hear you say you are a advocate, a community advocate, an advocate for young people, an advocate for wellness, and that you use this idea. You mentioned outdoors. So let's hone in just on that part of this idea of wellness. What exactly do you mean when you say outdoors?
Alhamdulillah, outdoors is literally being connected to what's going on in your community. We find that a lot of times our parents and stakeholders who are raising children often are working really hard jobs for long periods of the day. And then they're expected, of course, to come home and prepare or organize a meal for their children, and oftentimes a lot of the wellness in regard to how parents are taking care of themselves and then how parents are able to check in with their young people often goes by the wayside. We focus more so on the immediate concerns, things that are that feel like they're dire to be addressed, as opposed to just preventative conversations. I find that parents who continue to build a relationship with their young people outside of the home in open spaces like parks, green spaces, forestry, have a easier time communicating what is of concern to them. And
Mhm.
spending time outdoors is this is our natural habitat. The human was given the insight to be able to build home infrastructures, but to be connected to the earth and being able to cultivate healthy conversations while you're outdoors is really important. Um, Studies show that outdoor exposure can reduce stress, increase the likelihood of people expressing happiness just from their recreation that they're engaging in outdoors. So I advocate for parents to not only build in time to have meaningful relationships with their young people through conversation, but taking these conversations outdoor. Let's talk about what's going on or what's your interest in graduating high school on a walk around the park. Let's take time to maybe clean up our neighborhood and talk about or have a conversation about our responsibility and our wellness and how it's related to our social responsibility, how we clean up our neighborhood and how we protect our own and do for ourselves. So these conversations are the conversations that I'm advocating for our parents to have with their young people.
Brother Bilal, in your organization, what kind of things do you do to help and in terms of advocating? What kind of things do you do for parents to encourage them to take their children outside and to do have those conversations outside? What kind of things do you do for the community?
So a few things that I do for the community in conjunction with community, of course. I'm sorry, one second.
And while he's doing that, I would love to also hear from him
Yeah.
about his organization. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry. Excuse me. So the question was asked, what are we doing to engage parents in community around these conversations and outdoor exposure? So what's happening is that we're actually, myself and other community organizers are engaging parents, one, in conversations around their social responsibility. How do we keep the block clean? How do we organize committees of
Mhm.
folks who want to engage in service work? And so we start with the parent. We're starting with the young person's stakeholders and empowering them to see these conversations and these activities that happen outdoor as things that should be regularly happening. They shouldn't be things that are punishments. These aren't things that you do because you got in trouble. We have conversations regularly while we're walking outdoor for a brisk walk, while we're in, maybe visiting a farm during the fall time, getting your young person to visit a community garden and you visiting that community garden and having a conversation about their health and wellness as if on a physical or physiological level is where we start, is getting people outdoors first. You got to actually be outdoors, and the parents sometimes, we start with them because they're often harder to get outdoors. They're often busier. They have concurrent responsibilities, and maybe they're even um physically challenged to do some of these things. So we try to meet people where they're at, and a lot of that is just like, let's just have conversations in our community gardens. Let's have conversations on our walks around our neighborhood when we're doing our community cleanups, and make it a norm that we don't always have to be inside, and that wellness, a part of our wellness is recognizing we need outdoor exposure.
That's an amazing concept that you have there. And so I would like for us to back up just a little bit to get to know a little bit more about your organization. What kind of organization is this that would do such a wonderful thing and to connect with young people in this way? Can you tell us a little bit more about your organization?
Sure. So Urban Seeds Grow and Almunir LLC are organizations that are connected to providing services, programs, and capacity building to essentially mobilize Black and Brown folks so that they have access to resources that empower them to live happier and healthier lives. So that could be scholarships that we afford other grassroots organizations to give to their participants or community members. It could be creating employment services for young people so they get access to job training, like resume workshops and interviewing skills. And some of it also looks like taking the responsibility of urban gardens and green spaces and growing food for the community and distributing that food throughout the neighborhood and creating those jobs for those individuals within that neighborhood, teaching them how to grow food, how to process their food into herbal medicine, and how to cook their food are all facets of the work that's being led here at Urban Seeds Grow in Almonier.
Wonderful. And is that only for those who are in the New Jersey area? Is this something you can do virtually?
No, so we're currently working on projects, community for projects in multiple states. We're planning to execute some projects in both Detroit and Atlanta. We do most of our work here in the state of New Jersey and New York, and even have consulted on projects in Pennsylvania. So we are always looking to bring on partners and/or um, organizations that are looking for some technical support so that we could advise them on how to bring some of these projects to life in their own communities.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And I heard you when you talked about the use of the outdoors as one aspect of
Yes.
what you do, and this idea of unpacking stress and anxiety and using the outdoor space as that space for grounding yourself, for lack of a better word, grounding
Right.
yourself and connecting with your child and your child connecting with you. And I love all of this. And I hear you talking about also scholarships, opportunity exposure to those kinds of things. I think all of that is good news to
Hmm.
hear. How would someone like you're saying you're partnering with other cities and states? Is that partnership then something you're still doing in person, or is that a virtual connection that you're making?
It's both. And alhamdulillah for that, that I have the feasibility and access to go and visit projects and develop projects that are place-based and people-centered. Being able to connect with people virtually is also a blessing because some of that capacity may not be there all the time. But the coaching resources are available. We just want to make sure that whatever resources we turnkey, people actually go out and outside and actually use them. And
Mm,
so, that simple block cleanup, that starting your urban garden, we want to see people do these things. So if you're in a state and you have vacant property and you want to understand, or you have property that you own and you want to understand how to build community around your space, we have frameworks to help you raise funds to do outdoor exposure, whether that's growing food or camping or fishing. We can help you identify means to bring those resources together and hopefully get you some funding to do it, because a lot of good work is expensive, and I just want to be honest about that doing a good thing a lot of times means spending money out of your own pocket. And so we have some best practices for garnering resources from funders and um, individuals who want to support the work that's being led.
This is great news for our schools when we're looking at what kind of
Yes.
projects can our students get involved in. And when we're looking at, I like what you're saying because our focus tonight, we're centering it on wellness. And so you're saying that using the outdoor as a wellness tool is also an opportunity. And there is funding available to also support us so that we don't have to feel like we have to come out of our pockets. Did I get all that right?
Yes, that's correct, and I want to express that wellness is, empowerment, and understanding the importance of the empowerment practice, looking at your life, looking at um, the goals you want to actualize in life from a strength-based mindset, believing in Allah, believing that Allah is our Razak. That in and of itself is the empowerment practice that Allah will provide for you, and understanding that he will provide for you already puts you in a mindset to receive more. And so that is the essential to wellness itself, is understanding Allah. So cultivating that as a part of your family dynamic is going to be essential to um you know ensuring that wellness isn't something that's talked about, but something that's embedded in your
Mm,
practices and your day-to-day actions.
great, great.
I heard you mention about the Quran and connecting with the Quran. How do you get your what kind of things do you do for your parents or the people in the community in regards to Quranic connection and making that connection to the outdoors?
Yes, one of the many things that I've done as a public and charter school educator is because I've never taught at Islamic schools, but alhamdulillah, I'm in a state where there are tons of Islamic schools and masjids. So connecting parents and stakeholders to masjids, making sure they understand what is available through the services at the masjid is really important, and that they feel that they have community in the masjid or masjids, because you don't have to only attend one masjid. You can go and get services and be a part of multiple masjid communities. So ensuring that the parents themselves are in a space to feel empowered, and recognize that, hey, like, I need guidance from Allah in order for me to be receptive to how I'm going to be in a healthy space with my family. A lot of this work has to start with the parent. The wellness is the parent's responsibility to teach the child, and the child must learn to nurture it by observing the behavior of the parent. And so the outdoor exposure is a means for the young person and the parent to marvel at the creation of Allah, and to seek to understand why they are not only to seek to understand why they are in the place that they are in life, but to make the most of that position and statement, and to make the most of that, to make the most of the life that they have, is essentially them understanding wellness is that there will be ebbs and flows, and there will be moments in our life where things are harder than times when they are easier, but wellness itself is recognizing the duality. So looking for the duality in the night and day. And, we see that the Allah mentions that multiple times to us, and having us reflect on nature in and of itself, through multiple ayah in the Quran.
Yeah. Sister
Wonderful.
Sister Karan, our second guest is in the waiting room in the backstage area.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to bring also to the screen someone you have met before, and we've talked before about designing spaces for young people and their wellness. And we are happy to bring now her to the stage, Sister Aida Akil.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum
Alaikum
assalam and
salam.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Perfect
appreciate
timing
it.
because Brother
Yes.
Bilal has given us a great foundation to talk about this idea of wellness and using outdoor space to create spaces for wellness for young people, but also understanding that there is access to funding in ways that our schools and community organizations and masajid can access funds that are available to also support in these designs of programs that we may have to use our spaces to help with the wellness of our children. So welcome, Sister Aida. And I have some more questions for Brother Bilal, but I want to go ahead and welcome you and let you introduce yourself to our audience to help our audience understand what you do when we talk about centering wellness for our children.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Thank you so much. I was listening to Brother Bilal and him speak about, having outdoors and making sure that's a part of wellness. And believe it or not, as far as the interior design goes, I believe you have to bring the outdoors in order to really feel integrated. We don't
Mhm.
live in caves, so we have to be able to feel as if we're a part of the nature. We spend a lot of time inside. And so we want to make sure that we are, bringing the outdoors in, and that's a part of the wellness. So, alhamdulillah, I'm so happy to be here. Like Sister Quran said, my name is Aida Akil. I'm an interior wellness designer. And the philosophy behind interior wellness is that interior design is more than just what you see, it's a feeling. And so the way that you feel in a space, it can actually impact your physical and mental well-being. And so I look at design as not something that is extra or luxurious. I look at it as something that is necessary for us to feel whole. I think studies say that, humans, the average human, especially in the United States, spends 80% of their time inside. And so, whether that be their homes, their schools, their workplaces. And so, why not make sure that those spaces that we're spending a vast majority of our life in reflect us, make us feel whole, and are part of wellness in general?
Love it. For those who just tuned in, you are watching The Power of Educating Our Own, a program hosted by the Clara Mohammed School Network, a network that includes about 20 schools all over the United States and Bermuda. And we are welcoming you to our program and invite you to drop into the chat where you are watching us from and any questions you may have for our guests. So thank you, Sister Aida, for laying that foundation for us. And when we look at this idea of, I heard what you said about 80% of our time is spent indoors.
Yes.
And, unfortunately, in today's time, we have more and more of our young people feeling stress, feeling anxiety, and feeling sad and depressed. And so we have the responsibility as the adults in our children's lives to help ground them, to help them to understand how to come out of that feeling and that state of sadness, depression, anxiety, or whatever it is they may be feeling, or even to head it off, because sometimes just this exposure that you're talking about can head off some of those experiences. So I'm curious to know, I'm going to ask you first, and then Brother Bilal, I would love for you to also chime in with this. What elements for you, Sister Aida, of interior design, such as light, color, layout, and all of that, most supports children's emotional and mental wellness? And then the same thing when we talk about the outdoors, how do we then look at what kinds of things we do outdoors? Where are we going outdoors? And how does that look even for what we're doing? So I'm going to start with you, Sister Aida, and then go to you, Brother Bilal.
Yeah, so I think I want to, when it comes to children and designing for spaces, those are some of the funnest spaces I like to design for, just because it allows for imagination, creativity, outside of the box thinking. I think the biggest thing for them is that they feel as if they have a space. They feel like they have some sort of stake, or they're a part of the design process. So as adults, sometimes it can feel really frustrating if they want to put a blue, comforter, and that just doesn't go with your design scheme, right? But it's really important for them to have something. Okay, so even if they're picking out a wall color, or they pick out the color of their bed, or something interchangeable like pillows or throws, for them to feel as if this space is a part of them, right? I think everybody should have some sort of ownership in their space, even if we're talking about children, right? And so, not to say that, there can be like, this is my space, don't come in type of thing, but that they feel as if their personality, they had a stake in it. They felt like, okay, this is something that I, have. The second part of that is not necessarily a design aspect, but something that is a part of design, which is cleanliness and decluttering. I think that I always say a cluttered space is a cluttered mind. So when children go into a space and it's very cluttered, it's hard for them to kind of get their thoughts, like you're looking at chaos all the time. Like that is what clutter is. So when you're looking at chaos all the time, it's hard for you to really kind of allow your brain to be able to process that, because you're in a constant state of like frustration and stress and anxiety, whether you know it or not, because you're constantly looking at these little things that are cluttered all over the space, and you naturally don't like that. Most people don't like, it's just innately, we don't like that feeling. So we want to make sure that those two aspects when it comes to children and interior design are there. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Great, thank you, Brother Bilal. Then how does the outdoor wellness experience center on what we do out there, and how does it look?
Wow, I think uh I think it's multi-layered, as Sister Aida shared. We want to make sure that we're cultivating like waters, greenery, like foliage inside of our home. It just helps with the aeration in general, and again helps us to reflect on on the creation of Allah itself, because we're literally watching things grow. So like I feel that it's really beneficial for young people to watch the evolution of plant life happen. I think it's tons to document, to reflect on, to question. And then I've always been a big proponent of water activity. I know that historically our community has been on two different sides of the spectrum. A lot of times people are black or brown folks are either extremely passionate about our connection to water, or they're not so much. And so you see programs like Outdoor Afro who are creating access to swimming lessons and teaching folks how to interact with the water in a responsible and conscious way is something that I will hold in high regard. So it could be fishing, it could be swimming, it could be canoeing, but I really think for our communities in particular, or either just sitting by the ocean or the river and sitting in deep reflection, I would really say to lift up the presence of like aqua related activities. And then food always is something really important for us to consider. Engaging at a farm, going to a farm, engaging in farm to table eating, growing your own crops or plants. It's an experience that is unlike any other. When you watch a young person start from a small seed and then watch their tomato plant grow into something that they can make salsa from, their minds are blown. And it's not just the young person; it's the parents too. So I would say food, water, and just like yeah, having some type of plant to nurture in your home, I think is really cool.
Beautiful. Dr. Patricia, did you have
Well,
any questions before I go on?
yes, yeah, yes, I just wanted to say, ask, we have in our among our schools, included in our schools, we also have Islamic studies schools, and we would also want to encourage our Islamic studies classes and teachers and programs to get involved in the outdoors and gardening and so forth and so on. So what would you, and yeah, and when I finish with that, when you answer this one, I have another one for Saida. But how would you engage? What suggestions do you have for Islamic studies schools to get their people outside in the outdoors, gardening even?
Yeah, I would say to consider what different Clara Mohammed schools programs are already doing. This might be something that can be weaved into their science classes. Outdoor exposure can be weaved into really any of your classes itself. Literally just hosting class outside. If a school or program has it, suggesting let's go to the park, and let's have lunch and our lecture or workshop at the park. Getting a contact list of the different nature and conservancy programs offered via the state, oftentimes for free, and making sure we continue to lift up the amazing opportunities that lie ahead with field trips. Everyone loves field trips, oftentimes safe for teachers. So like making sure our parents know like, hey, we're hosting a field trip. We may need you to, join us this Saturday because we're going to be running programming on a day that we normally don't. And it's because we want to take our kids to the beach, or we want to take them to Stone Mountain Reservation, or, find a means to connect them to existing resources and take some of the earnest off of the teachers themselves and put it more on the organizations that have their own programs that you're looking to get engaged with. That's kind of where we are here in New Jersey, is connecting our Claire Mohammed schools to free programs and making sure that they can access these programs and, give their young people an opportunity to leave their neighborhood and go and learn outside of their community as well.
Great. Sister Aida,
Without
along
without
the lines of creating this space in our learning experience, I want to look first at our homes and then at our classrooms, because we're talking about wellness, right?
yes.
So what kinds of things would a parent need to consider in thinking, I want my home to be a place of peace? I want my home to be a place of wellness, that my child feels safe in my space. And the same thing for the classroom. I want students to feel safe in my classroom, but I also want them to feel this idea that when they walk into this space, their stress is reduced. So, what kinds of things do we do to create that?
I think it starts with intention. So when you start thinking like, I want this for my home, I want this for my classroom, that's the first step right there, is to actually have that idea. I think a lot of times when people are designing or they're thinking about their home, they're not really thinking about like, how do I want it to feel, right? They're not thinking about that aspect, that they're going to be walking through this house. Like, I want to make sure that it's conducive to function. You know what I mean? I want to make sure it functions well, it's organized well, it reflects us. So I think that there's so many aspects of interior wellness. But like I said, the first thing is we're talking about intention. So when you're thinking about your home, everybody's idea of peace is different. So when you think of your space as being peaceful, that could look like it being very kind of stark. So white walls and, woods and things like that. That might be your idea of peace. Someone else might think of like ocean colors and the beach as something that's peaceful. So then you might want to start bringing in those type of textures and also those type of colors. So it's very personal. That's what I want to stress, that each person's space is very personal, and you can't flip through a magazine and say, aha, there it is. Because that's a showroom. That's meant to be a general space. Your space should be, I should go in your space and understand who you are a little bit without ever knowing you, not in any way. I should understand who you are, by that. So for me, it's that intentionality with making sure that you're asking yourself, how does my family function? My family, I have a family of six. So no, I'm not going to buy a couch that can only sit three. Just little things like that. Just making sure that you are accommodating everyone in the home. I know my children like to color. So I'm going to make sure I have surfaces where I'm not like upset when they bring out the paintbrushes, because that is what your family likes. Why bring that little bit of tension, into your life? Let's have a space, even if that's a small desk, or even if you're bringing out like a little maida that they can be on the floor with. It's just about going through your day to day and saying, I think the biggest one is, this is how my family functions. This is how I function. These are things that I would like to implement. For Muslims, I implore you to have a dedicated space for prayer. There should be a space that your children know they can go to. This is a space that should be decluttered. This is a space that should remain clean. It should be comfortable, and it should accommodate everyone in the home. This is a space that they can come to kind of recenter, a space where they can always rely on, whether that's in congregational prayer or prayer for themselves. So, like I said, each space is going to be very unique. I think it's just, what do I feel is a space that is peaceful? How do I want to show that peacefulness within my space?
Wow, amazing. Brother Bilal, on the same line of thinking, I'm wondering, how can schools, masajid, and community organizations reimagine their outdoor spaces such that they have these spaces that could be classrooms, outdoor classrooms, healing spaces, and places of growth? What does that reimagining could look like? For some reason, you're on mute. We don't hear you.
That reimagining looks like dispelling the ideas of what educators are and who they are, and understanding that we have a wealth of educators in our homes who have a ton of knowledge, who want to be lifted up, recognizing that there are folks at the intersections of like justice, and different manners. who believe in the power of alternative education like we do, and who are able and willing, when contacted, to come into schools and provide them with curriculum and give them oversight and some coaching into how to bring some of these activities to life. So it's knowing the landscape. Clara Mohammed Schools Network, we're already, a niche community. So I feel like us, putting additional emphasis on, let's lift up the folks within our community who we know already do these things, and let's position them so that they can actually coach us so that we can lead as well. I think it's really important, playing to our strengths, and also not being too afraid to consider folks who don't look like us maybe coming into community and offering their resources. And with the proper guidance, I feel like that's it's what we're owed. It's what we're entitled to. If these are state resources, if these are local resources, and they're offered by folks who don't look like us, so long as they understand how they need to show up when we need them, I think we should leverage them as much as possible too. So just strengthening the knowledge of who we have at the table, and being open and willing to see, if we don't know who's at the table, who's interested in being at the table, because there's more than enough space for all
Mm,
of us.
Alhamdulillah.
I love that. Dr. Patricia, did you have any questions before I move on?
Yes, I just wanted to ask, are there any, Brother Bilal, could you share with us at least one success story, one of those wins that you've had in your work with the community, or with getting people outside, or working with the school, or working with parents? Just give us one of your success stories.
One of my success stories would be helping to establish a schoolyard garden through a contract that was presented to our organization. There's a Title One school district that had a front yard that was being underutilized. The school leadership identified that food equity would be a focus for the school, and they sought resources through a funder to establish some farm to table programming and urban agriculture, which ultimately led to that funder consulting us on the project, and us conducting research with the school leaders, the students, the parents, to bring together an urban garden at the school that was developed by the young people and their families and the teachers. So it was people centered. And I just think that was one of the more exciting experiences, because I love to be able to understand what it is that the community really wants. And if I don't know exactly what they want, I want to help them identify what their interests could be. And so that entire process required a lot of fact finding and understanding and relationship building. So I'd say it's a highlight. And I think I would think that the farm is going pretty strong right now. It seems like every time I go over there, it's getting bigger and bigger. So alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Alhamdulillah. How does growing up in these thoughtfully designed spaces then help children, or influence children to care for themselves and to care for their environment? That's to both of you.
I can go. So I think that I think it gives confidence. One, I think that children who grow up in a space that is thoughtful, I think that it will give them confidence going out into the world. Because again, we're going back to the a thoughtful space is a space where they feel like they belong. They feel like they have, been able to care for, and this are things that they like and things like that. So for me, I think it builds the confidence, and I also think that it just fortifies them to be able to understand what an unchaotic space looks like. And when I say chaotic, it doesn't necessarily mean uh, to me, a chaotic space is an unintentional space. And so I think that they can move forward with understanding intentionality. And I think that, that's the basis of us as Muslims. Nia is like at the forefront of everything that we do. So I think that for children, it's really important to establish that as their foundation, that intentionality. And then just going into, like Brother Bilal was saying, like bringing in plants and affecting your air quality, and making sure that those are factors that they don't have to think about, as they get older, so that they are able to think at the maximum level. So all of those things really factor into children organization, so that they can understand what organization looks like, so they can understand what routines look like. All of those come into what we talk about when we talk about interior wellness.
Okay, Brother Bilal, how can these thoughtfully designed spaces influence children's ability to care for themselves and for their environment?
So, self family community, a young person understanding themselves is going to empower them to be cognizant of their families empowering the young people to see their collective responsibility to the world is like exactly what we're looking for. This circle of energy that never stops. Everyone sees the interconnectivity between self, family, and community. So that model itself for me is essential. I always seek to bring self, family, and community together. And I think that it's not a one vision of it kind of model. It's family, community, self. It's self, family, community. These things are at the intersection of these aspects of our life. Are they're all at intersections and crossroads roads of each other. So we have to pay attention to all of it, and being grounded, like Sister Aida said, and understanding what your intention is going to directly impact how you show up, self, family, and community.
And so, with when we're looking at what we're doing to declutter our spaces, to ensure that we are helping children to ground themselves, help them to understand themselves by seeing themselves in these spaces, and then we're getting them outdoors and helping them to. I heard you say we do cleanup in the community, so it's not just walking the grounds.
Mm,
And I heard you say, let's sit by the beach. So it's a variety of things that can happen. And then I hear you, Sister Aida, when you say, let's bring the outdoors in and let's have those plants there and even pictures of the ocean or whatever that is, these colors that also affect the emotions of our children, because we're talking about their wellness. And I think it's important for us to help our listening audience to understand the role that parents play in creating this, or that the teacher play in creating this, that the master plays in creating this. So it's so many things when we start talking about designing our spaces. We're designing our indoor spaces and our outdoor spaces. So how do we help these to work together?
Well, again, I'll just stress how much I believe in bringing the outdoors in. Like, I think that's like a really big part of it. So that can look a lot of, the most basic thing is to bring in a lot of plants. I think every room should have at least one plant in their space. I think windows, opening up your windows, allowing the air, fresh air to kind of really come in, that's bringing the outdoors in. And when you do that, you're also bringing in the sounds. You know what I mean? You're bringing in the sounds of birds, or you're bringing in the, you're connecting your space, because being indoors 80% of the time is not healthy. It's not. But that's the reality of many people. So we have to do everything that we can in order to bring those outdoor in, even having like a small, like little herb garden in your windowsill. These things can help you, really try to mitigate the fact that we are indoors a lot. Naturally we should be outside and without shoes in the dirt. That's truly what grounding is and what we should be trying to do. However, if we're not able to do that, we can still do some things. I love wood. I'm going to have wood pieces in every part of my home. I love wicker. I love to, bring in all of these different type of natural things, because it's also a sensory thing as well. So I'm touching the natural things. I know people have like those salt rocks and all of those different things that they can do in order to bring those indoors, the outdoors indoors. because it's important that we have a symbiotic relationship when it comes to
Mhm.
the indoor and outdoor. It's not like, well, I'm gonna just, close myself in and do that. No, you have to be able to have those outdoor elements as well within your space. Lighting is really crucial. Like I said, some people don't open their blinds, just to kind of allow that sunlight to come in. So if that's the habit, like you're not ever opening your blinds, you're only just clicking on the light every day, then just try to do a small thing of just opening your blinds every day, allowing the sunlight to come in and having that natural thing. If the weather is nice, open up your windows, just to allow for that fresh air to come in. Having those natural elements are always important as well.
I
Uh,
have a question for, go ahead, Dr. Patricia.
well, yeah, I just want to say that the bringing the outdoor indoor, and the kind of things that you do for the interior of a classroom or a bedroom or a room. How do you get your ideas, Saida? Because you did something for shout out to you. We did something for my classroom, and I am so grateful for it. And it was just beautiful when it was finished and the children came in. They were like, and they really. And I said, well, how do you feel? And they said, peaceful. It's peaceful. And they looked at the wall and the accent wall, and they said, well, that should be all over. You put the accent. They want the accent all over the place. But I just wanted to ask this question: where do the ideas come from, and how do you make that connection for your clients?
Yeah, I'm a big inspiration person, so I'm constantly looking at things to get inspiration from. So I'm going to be on different websites like Pinterest or all of those just to get inspiration. And then after speaking to you, I got an understanding of what you were going for. So I it's hand in hand with making sure that a client or someone who wants to come to me for advice, I understand what you're doing. Like, okay, I have a classroom with children. Here's an issue that I'm having. I feel like this space is a little dark. How do we brighten it up, freshen up, And so because I've done spaces, I kind of understand some of the challenges, especially with our spaces. It's usually, we have space challenges. We might not have enough windows. We might have construction that is not the newest. So, how do we overcome some of those issues? So, for me, I have to understand the challenges of each room, each space, each client. And then, like I said, I'm constantly trying to get inspiration. So, that might be, looking at things in nature, like, oh, wow, I love the way that, the tree has those different colors. Well, let's try to bring some of those in. Or I love the way that the sky looks at Maghrib time. So I'm going to bring in orange and blue in these because I know that naturally those go together. So for me, I'm always going to start with color. Color is like the biggest thing that I'm going to start with. So once I have an idea of color, then things just kind of roll into place. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
And Brother Bilal, I know you need to hop off. So I would love to give you this time to give any closing comments that you have for our audience, as well as a way for them to connect for those who are interested in bringing this idea of the outdoor wellness to their city or state or school.
Yes. So I would share that from Allah we were created and to Allah we shall return. We got to be connected to the earth because that is a part of our makeup. And so fearing it, I think isn't helping us. We got to build those relationships with the animals, build our relationship with that urban land, that rural land, and keep ourselves receptive to spending more time outdoors and bringing, even though we're going outdoors now more, we want to bring that outdoor expression and vibe indoor, like Sister Aida said, so that we still cultivate that energy inside the house. And I'm adding my emails here to the chat, and Sister Karan and Sister Patricia, you have my contact information. Sister Aida, it's great to meet you. I would love to learn more about your work. You all feel free to reach out to me as necessary.
Thank you so much for joining us. We've learned a lot from you, and I feel like we've benefited from this experience. And I pray that our listening audience has also learned and benefited and will take full advantage of the opportunities that you are presenting to us. Thank you.
Inshallah.
And to our listening audience, you are listening to The Power of Educating Our Own, which is hosted by the Clara Mohammed School Network. You just heard from Bilal Walker, who shared with us ways to use the outdoors for wellness. But he also has a wonderful program that allows us to take advantage of funding that we can use in our schools, masajid, and community organizations as we look at using the outdoors and whatever things are available to us to build upon the wellness of our children, especially children of color. And now we will continue our conversation with Sister Aida Akil, who was talking about interior spaces. And I had a question as you were talking, and we have been talking about centering wellness and about ensuring that these spaces that we provide for our children, whether outdoors or indoors, are spaces that create peace, spaces that create calm, spaces that allow children to be able to explore and to use what Allah has given them and be grounded in that. I'm wondering, as parents and educators, when we've done some of these things that you have talked about, that Brother Bilal talked about, what kinds of things do we observe to know that it's working or that we need to pivot and we may need to adjust what we're doing? What should we be observing?
I think the first thing you should observe is how you feel in this space. So if at all you're feeling agitated or stressful, something is awry. And that could be a myriad of things. It could be that it's not functioning properly. Like, I have these keys. So, for example, you come into your house and you have these keys, and every morning you're looking for your keys. Well, you need to have something by your door to set your keys, just something as simple as that. But you don't understand just that stress that you are putting yourself into every single day, because you coming in, you have groceries, you have this. And so then these keys are everywhere. So if you are going throughout your normal day and there's a stressor, then you need to figure out what's going on. If you're feeling a little bit sluggish in your home, and you're not feeling sluggish, let's say you go to work and I don't feel this same sluggishness. Why do I feel this same sluggishness when I get home? Your air quality might be poor. You might need to invest in an air filter. You might need to check your air vents to make sure that they are cleaned out and properly done. You might need to make sure you don't have mold or mildew in your spaces. All of these things could potentially make you feel tired or anything like that. If you come in and you're like, man, I really need to paint that wall, and you just haven't done it. Those are little things that are making you feel anxious. And why have those anxiety inducing things in your home when your home is supposed to be your retreat? It's supposed to be the place that you kind of go and kind of lay all of that down. If you look around and you don't necessarily have to have pictures of people, but you look around and you don't have anything that's personal in your space. It's like it's a model home. Like, no one can tell who you are from that home. That's going to bring a little bit of stress. Why? Because you feel like likely that this might be not be your home. So, for example, this happens a lot when people are renting. They don't want to put up things. They might not want to put the holes in the wall. They don't want to paint because they understand that, hey, I'm going to have to redo this. You have to do it. It's not a choice. There's so many resources. You can get non-stick, you can get peelable wallpaper, and you just put that up. So when you're finished with your rental, you take that down. But those little things make you feel like I have a space. There's some people who don't even have, let's say they don't have enough money to buy a bed frame. And so they're on an air mattress. That's the reality of some people. And that's okay. But hey, maybe let's doll it up with some pillows, you know what I mean? And put a little throw on it. And, make sure that you're at least making it your own in some kind of way. Because if you don't, you're not setting roots down. You feel transient. You feel as if you don't have a space. Everybody wants to have a space. Everybody wants to feel like this is my space in some kind of way. Even if you're like many people share spaces with your husband, your kids, your parents. You share spaces, but you at least want to feel like, okay, at some point, this space is mine in some kind of way. So I would implore people to look at it as I have to do these things. These things are necessary for me to be my best self. These things are necessary for my mental and physical wellness. If our air quality is bad, that's affecting our health. If we don't have proper lighting, that's affecting our health, our eyes. When we're reading, you have to have proper light. You have to have things that are fresh and airy, and you have to be able to function in your spaces properly. And so, if we don't have those things, I think that your body will tell you. You'll
Hmm.
know, you'll feel it. Your stomach might get a little tighter. When you think about going home, you might not feel excited to go home. You might feel like, oh, yeah, I'm going home. You might not, want to go to bed. The bed is uncomfortable. There's so many different things that might be happening where you have to be in tune to yourself to understand that. And people might think, well, I have so many things to think about. That's like the last thing I need to think about is painting my walls. Well, I understand that's the reality of things, but it actually should be a priority,
Hmm.
because we all need to have a space where we can decompress and unwind.
I love that for the adults. What do adults do in observing the children who are accessing these spaces that we are creating? What should we be looking for in them to make sure that it's working for them?
Yeah, we should be looking for a similar, if uh I don't know if you've ever been to a hotel with children. The first thing they do is say, wow, they're excited. Like, so bring that excitement to the children. Say, today we're going to go look for some new pillows for you and we're going to install those pillows. And they're like, wow, that's making my space so much. And you can explain it to them. Now you have a space that's more comfortable. Now you have a space that is just for you. We make sure that your bed is a color that you love so that inshallah you have better dreams tonight. Anything like that children are easily, you can excite children easily. Do that for your children and you'll see the effects. You might see that they really love that pillow. They're making up their bed like extra special. Like I tell my children, I say, get your bedroom hotel ready. Like they understand what that means. That bed should be nice, like so that you can give yourself that gift of coming into a space that feels nice and it
Alhamdulillah.
smells good, and they get excited like, yeah, I feel comfortable in my space. And I think that the best thing you can do is have this open dialogue with your children, especially if they're like 8 and above. You can for sure ask them, well, what don't you like in your space? How can we improve your space? Here's a plant. I want you to be in charge of that. You know what I mean? I want to see how
I
that
love it.
plant grows. And you can talk to them when you have little toddlers. You can see, are they able to move in the space without you? Do they know where
Mm,
to go and get the cups and the things? Do they know where to go when it's time for prayer? Do they know what to do and to find their clothes and things like that? You look at them to see, like, how are they moving in the space? Are they moving with ease? Do I have to guide them every step of the way? Are things changing a lot so they feel kind of like, I don't know, I don't know where my pajamas are today. So you would look at the ones who may not be able to express themselves. How easily are they moving within that space?
mhm.
Mhm, mhm.
Wonderful. Dr. Patricia, did you have any questions before we close out?
No, no questions. Just wanted to let everyone know that Sister Aida does an excellent job of creating spaces, and she helped me to create a space for my classroom and my Islamic studies class. And the students really enjoyed the colors that she chose for us. And I even went and I looked the colors up, and I saw that the colors she gave us one color was called Sky High, and
Hmm.
that color, yes, that color is it represents the highest level of the sky, which represents the spirituality of the human being, and then the lowest level of the sky represents the material world. And but she gave me Sky High, which was highest level, which was the spiritual world, the
Alhamdulillah.
spiritual level. And then she gave me Bip side, uptide. And
Hmm.
uptide represents the ocean. And
Hmm.
so I have in my colors in my classroom, I have the sky high, which is the sky, and I have the ocean. And I
Yes.
and It's so peaceful, and the children really, really like it. And I want to thank you for that.
Alhamdulillah, that makes me like feel so good. Honestly, it does. I love hearing just that people are enjoying their spaces, that their spaces were improved. I love that you looked up the names. Like in another life, I feel like I want to be a color name. I want to name colors because I'm so interested in the way that they phrase those colors. Like I said, I get so much inspiration from nature, so I naturally gravitate towards colors that are easily seen within nature. So it really really makes me feel happy that the space was improved. Alhamdulillah.
Yes, it
Alhamdulillah. And then, Sister Aida, did you have any closing comments before we close out?
Just wanted to kind of echo what everyone has been saying. I appreciate. I could talk about interior wellness all day. It's truly a passion of mine, and it's something that I want our community, especially, to really benefit from. I think that people, especially in marketing and things like that, they already understand the big importance that interior wellness has, and they do it to induce more money. Like they want more money. They know if you're coming and you feel comfortable, you're going to spend more, or you're going to stay a little longer. So I want us to think of it as we want our spaces to be inviting. We want our children to grow up in spaces that they feel confident in, and they don't have to go to other institutions to see these well-designed
Mhm.
spaces. They have them right here. They have a nice home, not because their home is expensive, but because there was intention put behind their home, and they were considered in their home. So I really appreciate having the platform to be able to discuss this, which is something that I really think is so important.
Well, we thank you for joining us and sharing this. And to our listening audience, just a reminder to us that tonight's program was a reminder that wellness is not accidental. It is intentional. It is something we intentionally create for our children through the spaces that we design. So, whether it is indoors or outdoors, we have the duty to intentionally look at where our children are stepping into and what that space is creating for them. Are we nurturing their wellness, their well being mentally, spiritually, and physically? Are we doing that? And we want to make sure that we're doing that intergenerationally. So on all levels of our children, we want to look at what are we doing to design intentional wellness for them. We thank you so much for tuning in to the Power of Educating Our Own, a weekly program, inshallah, every Sunday, right here at this same time. Tell your friends so that next week we'll see you and your friends. Again, thank you for joining us on the Power of Educating Our Own. Until next time, let's continue to work together. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
wow.